Today we are going to start this developer interview, but before that, let's see the prompts a little bit. I'm interviewing for a React developer position at a tech company. The interview is conducted by a senior developer. Yes, yada yada. Demonstrate strong understanding. Solve a code. Explain your thought process. Yep. Evaluate. Judge the clarity and coherence of the user's explanation. Yep, sounds good. Yeah, let's try it.
Hello, Milind. Thank you for joining the interview today. Let's start by discussing your understanding of React. Can you explain what components are and how they work in React?
So components in React are an essential thing to take care of. Components are basically a way to organize the UI components in your React application. React in itself is a UI library that can help us build UI components on the web and structure our front ends nicely so that we can manage a large application fairly well. In a component, there are a lot of things, but the basic structure happens using JSX. Inside it, we can write JavaScript like syntax inside HTML. We can hook up states from our React component like use state, call side effects using use effect, and all sorts of things inside components. So that's mostly what components are used for.
Great explanation, Milind. You covered the basics of components well. Now let's dive a bit deeper. Can you walk me through how you would manage state in a large-scale React application? Specifically, how would you handle state that needs to be shared across multiple components?
So there are a lot of ways to handling this problem. So the first naive approach that we can have is handling the state in our parent component and then passing down the props to the children components accordingly as the use fits. But in a large application where we have a shared state across components and across other views, we can use some sort of global state management solution. One that comes into my mind from the React itself is the context API. You can use context, but to even more perform it better, and what's generally recommended in the industry is using something like Redux or Zustand as a global state management provider, and inside that we can define our stores and then uh, subscribe to the states and dispatch events from those libraries. We specifically use Zustand at our work right now, so, and I am fairly used to the methods, and the usage from Zustand is a pretty good API.
Excellent, Milind. You have a good grasp of state management strategies in React. Now, let's move on to a practical challenge. Imagine you have a list of items that need to be filtered based on user input. Can you write a simple React component that takes a list of items and a search term as props and displays the filtered list based on the search term?
So in order to search across this component, what we can do is we can first define the list. We have the list in our JSX and the state, and the search term is of course being taken from an input, so we can have a input and set input use state on the top, which on change of that input box automatically gets updated. And for the search function we can use some sort of a debounced hook. We can use debounce and then take the debounced search term and filter our search results according to that. We can filter according to the debound search keyword and then render the list which is outputted from the search function, and then render the list accordingly.
That sounds like a solid approach, Milland. Using a debounced hook to optimize the search is a good idea. Can you walk me through how you would implement the debounced hook and integrate it with the search functionality in your component? Additionally, how would you handle edge cases such as an empty search term or no matching items?
So inside my search function, we can have states for whenever the list is empty, we can handle the empty state accordingly and early return that component so that it can say something like no search found for the search query. Maybe if it's a very large search query, so we can trim it down to smaller so that it fits in the viewport. And for the loading states as well, while the search is being loaded, we can render a loading state as well. We can manage the state for that. If it's a very large data set, it might take a little while for the browser to load it. And for the debounced hook, we can actually implement it using a custom, we can prepare a custom hook and using some sort of a delay in the input. We can, let's say 300 milliseconds, we can implement the debounced hook and integrate in our component. And this is how we wrap up the whole search.
You've provided a comprehensive approach to handling search functionality, including edge cases and loading states. Excellent work, Milind. As a final question, how would you optimize the performance of your search component if the dataset is extremely large? Are there any specific techniques or tools you would use to ensure smooth performance?
So there are various kinds of optimizations and levels of optimization in this problem statement. First is rendering this large list as well. So if we are rendering such a huge large list, we can either virtualize them or we can get paginated results according to the API. So in the pagination, we can implement a nice table which has next page button and all that.
You've provided a comprehensive approach to handling search functionality, including edge cases and loading states. Excellent work, Milind. As a final question, how would you optimize the performance of your search component if the dataset is extremely large? Are there any specific techniques or tools you would use to ensure smooth performance?
Yes, when the list is extremely large, we can, of course, we can slap a use memo hook onto the list. Whenever there is a change in the list, it can go through the use memo, so we can memoize that list if it is very large. But in order to render it, we can also virtualize the list according to our viewport or implement pagination in our list component so that we have paginated results from the API.
Great job, Milind. You've demonstrated a solid understanding of optimizing performance for large datasets using techniques like memoization, virtualization, and pagination. This concludes our technical discussion. Do you have any questions about the role or the company that you'd like to discuss?
Awesome. I think what kind of other good implementation your company has, I'd like to understand that more, and what kind of culture does the company have so that I can fit in really well.
Our company places a strong emphasis on best practices and cutting edge technologies. We use a variety of tools and frameworks to ensure our applications are scalable, maintainable, and performant. For instance, we heavily rely on TypeScript for type safety, Jest for testing, and tools like Webpack for bundling. Additionally, We have a collaborative and inclusive culture where continuous learning and innovation are encouraged. We have regular code reviews, pair programming sessions, and knowledge sharing workshops. Does this align with what you're looking for? Feel free to ask any more questions you might have.
Yes, it does. Thank you for your time. I think interviews in general should have something like a machine coding round. I'll start doing some machine coding round in the next few set of videos because this kind of technical voice to voice rounds are certainly limiting in showcasing the knowledge of coding which we are essentially being hired for. So yeah, let's test that as well in the later few videos. Awesome. Strengths, good technical knowledge, problem solving skills, areas of improvements, of course, while explanations were clear, providing more specific examples. Yes, maybe explaining more about the debounce hook that we are implementing, or the memorization techniques could help a little more. Handling complex questions when discussing for large response could have been more details and structured. Yes, because the AI is, sensing voice calmness and then automatically moving it to the presenter, to the interviewer. That is kind of limiting for me to explain. But yes, I could, of course, have gotten into more depth. Yeah, that's mostly it. Thank you for watching.